Maxie, I've been thinking, should we do season 3 on the Dr. Joe show? You sure? You sure it's a good idea? You know, that's what I'm talking about. Saint Luis Rey brand history. What brand history? Well, a very, very fuzzy one. But you know me, being who I am, I broke everything down the best I could, and like the Cohiba episode, we have a few question marks, but some good ones, and some very well conceptualized, some very, very poignant, well conceptualized question marks that will be at the end of this episode. But first, let me clarify this. What made this brand history so difficult? Well, first of all, as long as I've been doing this, I am not overly familiar with Saint Luis Rey. Yes, I knew it was a brand. Yes, I knew there's another brand by almost the same name, and we'll talk about that. And I knew several other things. But as far as who made it, why it was made, when it was made, all those different things, I knew it was an older brand, but I was wrong. I thought it was a lot older than it actually is. Things like that, not very familiar with it. And one of the reasons for that, probably, is that they're hard to get these days. They're fairly hard to get these days. Like Ramon Alones, like so many of the other more obscure Cuban brands, the non-global brands, the local market brands, they've been weaned down to only 3 vitolas in this case. So there's not a lot going around. Very low production. You know, probably low on like the La Gloria Cubana side, low, maybe even less. You know? But the real thing that made it a fucking travesty was the mishmash of mismatched information strewn across the fucking internet about this brand. You know, everybody wants to act like they know what they're talking about. That's point number one. So they build their website, be it review or retail, and being that they want everybody to think they know what they're talking about, they find another website that talks about the brand and copies and pastes it. But then they change a few little details, a few little words to make it look like their own. And what you end up with in the end is a telephone game of 40 fucking websites that all obviously have the same exact fucking thing written there, you know, sometimes nearly word for word, but with one very important detail missing, or one very important detail changed, not matching on 2 different sites. You know, everywhere I went, even some of the bigger sites, even some of the biggest review sites have information that makes no fucking sense. So I had to do some digging. And let's just assume that this thing is going to go out in a minute. Put it down. It's getting a little creamier now, too. Let me look at my notes here because I want to see where I want to start. So let's do this. I'll point out some of the erroneous information later. But first, let's talk about what I've deduced as far as names and dates and when the brand was created and all that goes. Nice ash building, and if I didn't have to talk and I could just keep puffing, you know, constantly, it would stay nice and lit, but we have to talk. Okay, so this brand was first registered under the names Zamora and Guerra. Okay, here's point number 1. People have all sorts of dates for this. You know, a lot of sites will say the brand was registered in 1940. Or a lot of sites will say the brand was registered around the 1940s. you know. And then there's brands that would say that the brand was first established in the mid-1950s. And then, but saying any one of those things by itself is completely wrong. And then there's a site out there that says the brand was first established in 1927. That's not true at all. And I'll show you where they made a mistake there. But for instance, for now, let's just say the brand was first established probably in 1938. We know this brand was established right before World War II. That's a fact. 1938 is right before World War II. And the brand was first registered under the names Zamora and Guerra. Who these two people are? No fucking idea. Likely Spanish. Both surnames are of Spanish descent. Although Guerra, if you go way back in surname history, actually comes from the French. And I'm talking way back to around 1200. That's very interesting, and we'll see why later. Now, Zamora and Guerra, 1938, they establish a brand, Saint Luis Rey. That's it. That's all that's known. It sold for a little while, and all of a sudden, poof, it disappeared. Okay? So the brand is just not around for a while. No one knows what happened to it. It's just gone. But obviously, it was picked up later by somebody. Otherwise, I wouldn't be smoking it right now. And if Habanos SA keeps cutting Vitolas, I'll never be smoking it again. Huh. But anyway, yes, somebody picked it up later. Who was that somebody? Well, British importers. British cigar importers by the names of, well, maybe not cigar importers. Maybe they were just getting into it. Who knows? But anyway, their names were Michael de Keyser and Nathan Silverstone. These guys were looking to get into the cigar business, and they picked up, on a whim, I suppose, Saint Luis Rey. At what time? Now, here's where things get funny. Some people go, the brand was first established by Zamora and Guerra in 1927. Wrong. Or 1938. Okay. And then in 1940, after the brand was briefly lost by them for some reason, it was picked up by Silverstone and de Keyser. Wrong. 1940. 1940. Do you have any idea what was going on in England in 1940? And this is so funny. Like, everybody is you know what's happening here? People are seeing all these different dates and trying to put them together. They see 1938, they see 1940, they go to Cuban Cigar website, who says the brand was established around the 1940s. Well, that's correct. 1938 is very close to the 1940s. But people start putting, well, then they find out about Zamora and Guerra, and they say, oh, that's 1938. Cuban Cigar website said 1940, so when it went to de Keyser and Silverstone, that must have been 1940. There's no fucking way. Okay? Here's Mike de Keyser and Nathan Silverstone sitting at a blown up fucking bar. Maybe they just went to Dunhill and saw what great business he was doing, selling pipes on a table in the middle of the street with his blown up shop behind him, and said, hey, now's a great time to get into the fucking cigar business, baby. Yeah! Half of London is fucking on fire. 1940, the Germans started their first air raids on England. Wales was bombed in July, and that August, London was bombed for the first time, which was the start of something called the British Blitz, or the English Blitz, which was an ongoing bombardment. I mean, just like, relentless fucking bombardment, air raids every fucking day of England by the Germans. This is not the time to get into any industry, okay? This is the time to go into your nearest fucking tube entrance and sit tight until the fucking ground stops shaking. So, I don't know where people get the idea. This is a good point right here. This shows my example perfectly of why knowing some history is such a great thing. Of course, it allows you to disprove bullshit when you see it. Okay? This brand was not reestablished in 1940. All right. It was reestablished sometime during the 50s, after the war, after everybody stopped bombing the shit out of each other, by these two gentlemen, De Kaiser and Silverstone. And that's that. That's when the brand came into the type of brand we know it to be today. Interesting. Who created the original band? You know, was it Guerrera and Zamora, or was it De Kaiser and Silverstone? And I'm about to get into why that's interesting. So we talked about who established the brand, and we talked about when they established the brand. And remember, everybody out there on the internet, here are the correct dates. 1938, Zamora and Guerra. Mid-1950s, De Kaiser and Silverstone. That's the way it has to be, okay? There's no way that these guys are going to buy a fucking cigar label as British importers when London is being bombed. Not going to happen. So 1940 is out. As we talked about the who's, we're going to talk about the why, or what the brand stands for, what the name is all about, Saint Luis Rey. That seems to be another very confusing topic on the internet. In fact, I'll go so far to say as nobody really fucking knows. The internet does not know everything. So, let's do our first third review. Nice long ash on that puppy, but I think we went out. You know, we're lit, but I'm going to give it a touch-up because I do not want to tunnel it. I'm going to knock that ash off and relight. First third was really, really nice. Got my cigar relit again. Draw seems to have opened up a little bit. Hopefully it's going to be a little better. Much better. It's getting much better now. You know, it's a real shame. And this is why I just don't like pyramids. I really don't. You know, generally, I don't like pyramids. The whole thing behind that, oh, pyramids is a harder shape to roll, so it's rolled by, you know, better torquedours. You know, I don't know. I think maybe, but even they can make mistakes. A lot of pyramids I smoke just come out, you know, they're finicky. You know, I like the standard Parejo shapes. They seem, to me, to have better consistency when it comes to construction and draw. On the Cuban side, anyway. So, that's what I usually stick with. But, being that it was, you know, difficult to get any other Saint Luis Reys, and I wanted something a little special, I went for these. And, getting a little heavier now. So far, really, really nice. Like I said, the beginning opened up with some hay, some grain, and then it got a little bit more oaty, toasty. Very nice. There's even some toastiness in the aroma. The aroma is fairly sweet. You know, it's more sweet than floral, the aroma. And usually I get a lot more floral with a little hint of sweetness, but it's a very, very sweet aroma, and you can actually smell hints of black pepper. It's just a very peppery cigar. The back of my palate is tingling a little bit. Like I said, the effect kind of stopped. It's not spicy. It's not spicy at all, but it's got this peppery flavor that's really, really nice. Through the nose, it's very smooth. It's not that it's causing any peppery burn or anything like that, but I'm getting this really nice peppery essence all over the place. And I like that. I like that. It's an interesting note that I haven't found in very many Cuban cigars that we've reviewed lately. So, something different. Very, 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 very nice. Very nice. You know, just it's bready. It's got the sweetness is all in the aroma. You know, there's a touch here and there, very, very subtle, but it's mostly. It's hard to describe. It's a bit complex. I'd say it's a bit complex. It's a little woody. It's a little cedary. You know, it's a very nice cigar, and it's got a very, very, very good flavor. I'm very happy with that aspect of it. So let's see. With our first third, we had a little bit of a little tightness on the draw. Actually, fairly tighter than I would have liked it to be. Let's be honest. And we had a little bit of a going out problem. Not so much of a burn issue where the thing was going nuts or anything, but it just didn't want to stay lit so well. That's hard to say whether that's my fault or somebody else's, but being that 90% of cigars I light, they come from everywhere else, stay lit, I don't know how it can be my fault. That being said, though, it's deeper now. It's deeper now. Very toasty. Very nice. We'll get into that a little later, our second third. As of now, we want to go back to our brand history. Now, like I said, we talked about Saint Luis Rey, who made it, when it was made. But now we want to know why it was made. All these brands have a little story behind their name, what they were named for or why they were created. And Saint Luis Rey, with such an interesting name like that, Saint Luis Rey, you'd figure that we know what it's an attribute to. But if you go on the internet and look, you're going to see the same two things over and over and over. Thing about these double-banded cigars, as pretty as they look in the box, they interrupt your smoking if you don't take everything off in the beginning. Anyway, I burnt down a little bit, and I've just been sitting here and I've been looking online and pondering the true meaning of this brand. It bothers me because, as you all know, I love brand history. That's what these are, brand history reviews. And you know what? We're finally working our way up to number 40. And I'm not even going to wait till then. I am starting some new series, short reviews, but I'm also adding another twist, and I think a lot of you out there are going to like this. It's going to enable us to introduce a lot more cigars a lot more quickly. It's going to be great for people new to cigars who want to learn more about a larger selection, so when they walk in a cigar shop, they look around, I remember that, that kind of thing. And then, of course, we're going to do some standard short reviews like, kind of like you see everywhere else, but we're going to do it Dr. Joe style, and we're going to do it here in the Dr. Joe Cigar Emporium. But back to the episode. Brand history. I love brand history. I really do. And I really love when I come across something that I can't seem to find out. No one else can, because it just makes me want to find it out that much more. I changed the image of Saint Luis Rey over here because I wanted to give you another shot. Well, you know what? You're going to see him up close anyway. I'll give you some up close shots because I wanted to show you that as close up and detailed as this photo is of this band, you still really can't make out too well what that crest is, what that coat of arms is, because that's what it is. It's a coat of arms. Saint Luis Rey. Remember, the brand is first established 1938, and then it's picked up later on by Silverstone and De Kaiser somewhere in the mid-1950s. That's what we're saying. That's our story, and we're sticking to it. As far as the reason behind the brand, and I said there were two popular theories online. Okay? One is that it's named after the San Luis region in Pinar del Rio province in Cuba. Why would they name it after that region? Well, San Luis, or St. Louis, is extremely well known for the quality of wrapper leaf that it produces. A lot of wrapper leaf grown there, very good quality leaf, and it's just known as especially fertile soil. Just like we're going to learn as with Hoyo de Monterrey. Hoyo de Monterrey, same story, named after a particular growing area. We'll get to that when we do that brand history, which is coming very soon. But for now, we have to stick to Saint Luis Rey. So, That's the first theory. The second theory, and this one to me is a further stretch than the theory that I'm going to throw out there. The second theory is that it was named after a 1927 play by playwright Thornton Wilder named The Bridge of Saint Luis Rey. Again, note the word San instead of Saint. Saint Luis Rey. Now here's the way I look at it. Why name it after this play? Well, things have been done like that before. Monte Cristo was named after the famous novel by Alexander Dumas. So, why not? Well, a play? Really? In 1938? I don't know. I mean, anything's possible. But there's no proof of that other than the name. And note this, the play is not called The Bridge of Saint Luis Rey. It's called The Bridge of San Luis Rey. Okay. It does have one thing going for it, though. The word Rey, or king, is in there. In our example where it would be named after the San Luis region in Cuba, it's not called the San Luis Rey region. It's just called San Luis. Now, and in both examples, we have San instead of Saint. If you're naming it after the play, San Luis Rey, why change San to Saint? If you're naming it after the San Luis region, why not call it San Luis Rey? Why change the name to Saint? I don't know. But get this. San Luis Rey translates to King St. Louis. St. Louis King. King St. Louis sounds better. So I'll say it that way. But those are the three words, and that's what it translates to. Coincidentally enough, well, this isn't really coincidental. There was a King Louis. There were many King Louises, actually. But we're going to look at one in particular. King Louis IX of France, 11th century. And why are we so interested in this particular King Louis? Because he is the only King Louis, and the only Louis period, that was canonized by the Catholic Church, a.k.a. he entered sainthood. He was made a saint. So here we have St. Louis the King, or King St. Louis, however you want to say it. But here is a historical person who was a king and a saint, and his name was Louis, all at the fucking same time. How much more proof do you need that this is who they were talking about? Not only that, this would finally explain why instead of saying San, as in both of our former examples, they say Saint. Saint Louis. Now, the spelling of Louis is up for debate because, as in King Louis of France, they spell it L-O-U-I-S. Here we have L-U-I-S. But here's the funny thing. There are many places around the world named after St. Louis. Being a king and a saint, he's actually rather famous. One of them is in Brazil. Another is in Mexico. And these places are called San Luis, L-U-I-S. So it's a little bit of like that lost in translation kind of thing. But it's definitely not as odd as changing San to Saint, the English version of Saint, and then say you're referring to either the play or the valley, if you understand what I'm saying. So my theory, and I think my theory is rather just as fucking good, if not better, than these two that are online, is that this cigar is actually named after King Louis IX of France.
Say goodnight, Max.